Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD, 123 here back in Blazing Swords, and we are back here in my new setup, in my new room for the time being, of course, and we got a lot to discuss involving The Last of Us Part 1 remake for PS5. Of course, while I was moving and everything, there was a whole hoopla about, the game leaking, and we did a video about that as well, discussing my thoughts on that whole thing. But now we have, of course, Naughty Dog and Tony coming out here directly and giving us pure gameplay with The Last of Us Part 1 and detailing those differences that they claim to be here. And definitely, they are here for sure, but we got a lot to discuss here in this video. Before we get to that, make sure to like on the video as well as hit subscribe to PlayStation Source to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. First and foremost, down below find links to the PlayStation blog post that has details about this whole game, as well as the Part 1 rebuilt PS5 video, which we will have footage of as I'm talking to kind of boost the overall, give you guys a little visual representation of what we have going on here. So first and foremost, we can confirm the initial suspicion that one of the reasons that this game exists, besides from the HBO show, is because of course they had remade scenes and gameplay sections that were directly from The Last of Us 1 in The Last of Us Part 2. So they say, why not remake the first game fully from the PS5 and for the PS5 as well. So they say here that it's an opportunity to get closer to the original game's intent and scope, which couldn't be achieved with the hardware constraints that they had with the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 overall. I guess less with PS4 because they didn't really change any gameplay stuff from the PS4 directly, just merely the overall resolution and frame rate and all that. And this is going to be a lot more deeper than that as well. So some features here just to read off here really quickly. We have native 4K 30 frames and dynamic 4K at targeting 60 frames as well. So that's definitely gonna be the one that I'm going for, that dynamic 4K target 60 frames per second, but there is a native 4K 30 if you would want to as well. Hopefully they add a little 4K 40 type mode, because that's what the leaker said, that there is a 4K 40 mode. Not sure if that's incorrect at that point, but that's definitely a difference that they had here, where they did not say anything about a 4K 40, only 4K 30 and 4K 60, right? And they also went into a very much in-depth here about the adaptive feedback, which some examples are that when you have a shotgun, you'll get a haptic vibration with the shot as well as the pump as well. So you'll get those two different haptic feedbacks from that perspective. They also confirm that they're all over the place. From melee combat, you'll feel haptic feedback, from jumping, and of course to quiet moments as well. When you can pet the giraffe towards the end of The Last of Us, you can feel that as well. So haptics all over the place. Definitely something that we all were assuming would be in the game. But we also have adaptive triggers, which is also another thing that is on PS5 as well. And this is where you'll feel different trigger tensions for different weapons as well in the game, along with one that they of course have to highlight. You have to highlight the bow adaptive triggers in every game, right? We got to have the bow stuff. So this one day went into a lot of detail about how when you start drawing the bow, initially there will be less resistance, and then once you are pulling it back all the way, there'll be a lot more tension in the trigger, and then once it releases, it'll be just a quick, very fluid release that is realistic to actually drawing and shooting a bow, right? So there's that right there. Through the audio, they did highlight that you can hear enemies behind you, and they say that that's a very big, really cool gameplay difference that they said from the original game, where you'll be able to really sense a enemy or a clicker behind you and everything and all that. Very cool stuff right there. And of course, the usual suspects like HDR and fast SD loading will also be in the game as well. So to go into a little more about the game itself, they do have rebuilt character models and face models as well that give way more emotion, which we can see in a lot of shots in this gameplay, that there's a lot more subtlety in the way different characters react and different facial expressions from this game itself. So really cool to see that is in the game. Really like that, and that's definitely going to add to the overall experience. There are some character models, there are the same character models in gameplay and cutscenes that provide a much better transition to gameplay itself. So really cool that they're using the same character models in game and in cutscenes. So no longer will we have, where if you play the original Last of Us, you can see that there are pre-rendered character models that are in the cutscenes that are of a higher fidelity, and then a much lower quality version in the gameplay. Those are going to be the same now. So really cool to see that there as well. They also went into a lot of detail about a lot more physics objects in the game that break and move and make the overall world and environment feel feel much more rich and believable, like glass breaking, concrete chipping, etc. So really cool to see that there as well. There's also AI tech from The Last of Us Part 2 in the game for enemies. They are going to be much more sophisticated in terms of flanking and combat awareness, which I'm scared of, because if we saw some of the leak footage, right, you know, and I know this is official, right, so we should definitely take this with more of proof and everything, but some of those leaks were showing some AI that looked kind of dumb. I'm throw that out there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that leak was from a previous build. That's what I'm hoping, but just gotta note that there as well. But they also said that the AI doesn't stop at the enemies. They go also into the buddies in The Last of Us, which are, you know, Ellie and the two brothers as well, which I forgot their names, and etc. Right? So AI for your buddies have improved a lot in terms of they are directly from The Last of Us Part 2's buddy system as well, where they have two things now called exposure and future exposure. With exposure being that buddies can tell where enemies can see in the moment, right? So they can definitely avoid their line of sight in the moment. However, they can also do another thing called future exposure, where they'll be able to eventually tell where the enemies will be able to see based off of their trajectory of their walk pattern, right? So if they're coming around the corner, they can sense that, okay, as soon as they walk around this corner, this other corner over here is going to be out of their view, so we can move into that position. So really cool that they'll be able to be a little bit more sophisticated. That way we don't have those Last of Us Part 1 original release, and you know, like instances where Ellie will just be right in front of an enemy and the enemy doesn't spot her because, you know, the game wants to only spot you and not her and everything. So really cool that they'll, you know, be able to just be more immersed in the overall stealth that you're trying to do in the game itself. And so the last thing they really wanted to highlight was motion matching, which I'm pretty sure was in The Last of Us 2 or a system like that. I feel like it's very similar to something in Part 2, where it's an animation system that has a bucket of different movement sets, and what the system does is it chooses the closest to what it's currently at and lines that up with the animation to make it feel much more fluid and much more you know, just much more seamless from animation to animation. So you could go from like running to a melee to like running to a stop and running to like turn around, everything. Like the overall movement is going to feel a lot more fluid because they have a lot more data to work off of. And so we see a lot of those in some of the animations in the game itself already from the footage, like from Joel when he's putting down the plank on the rooftops in the initial you know, few hours of the game. Like it looks a lot better from that standpoint. So really cool to see that they are using that motion technology. Really cool to see that there. So next up, they went over some really cool additional gameplay modifiers in case you want to turn these on and use these for yourself. And so they showed one that looked kind of like a only headshot kills thing, but I don't know if that's actually one. I thought that it was just like a really quick clip. Not sure if that is a gameplay modifier, but there could potentially be that. I think they also announced some additional render modes for the game itself, and one of them that looks like the Matrix, I think. So there's that they only showed for render modes. They showed off a new evolved photo mode as well for the game, so that's really cool as well. And also a really highly requested one, Permadeath mode. This is in Last of Us Part 2, where essentially it's one death and you're done with the game. Like you have to start all the way from the beginning. Like it's like that type style, like a roguelike type style. So really cool that that's in the game as well. I know a lot of people love that mode as well. Really cool to see that there. Another requested mode as well, speed run mode. This will put a clock on the game itself, and you'll see the timer and you'll see the area that you're at in the game itself. And so really cool speed run mode. A lot of people love that. The speed run community is definitely going to get at that as well. Really cool to see that there. Next up, they did an interesting choice here. You can now unlock different outfits to play the game itself in. So you can put like a different shirt on Joel or Ellie and stuff like that. And there's really cool stuff, including like, you know, Jack and Daxter shirts. There's a Naughty Dog shirt. There's Uncharted shirts. So if you want that, there you go. I probably won't. I feel like I just want to you know, just have the clothes that they originally are in and everything. I just feel like that just, you know, is something that's better for me. But hey, if you want to mess around and have different shirts, by all means, go ahead. Oh, also there's skins for weapons as well. That's pretty cool. The skins for weapons, I wouldn't mind putting a little, you know, blue and yellow on my weapons as I do, you know what I'm saying? So really cool to see that there as well. There's a model viewer, which was in, I believe, Last of Us 2 and definitely Uncharted, where you can see all of the different assets in its full glory. You can check out that in the model viewer mode, and they have of course announced over 60 accessibility options for the game itself, including for the first time that they'd say in a PlayStation game, audio description mode for the PlayStation 5 Part 1 iteration of the game. So this will audibly describe every scene in case you need that for yourself to enjoy the game. Really cool stuff there with the audio description mode. Looks like it, is really seamless and works really well for those that need it for themselves. Next up, we have the environments, which doesn't have a ton here, but there is a lot of revamped art direction in this game as well, that looks really well done. Like honestly, like when we look at certain environments in the original game, in this remake, right, it looks really, like, I can't even cap, guys. Like, yes, I love The Last of Us, I love this game, and it looks really good. like we'll get into my final thoughts, but the actual environments and how dense they are, how much lush they are, and just the detail in this game from the environmental perspective looks really, really well done. And you can tell that there was a lot of work done to the environment itself. And they also have, of course, the last thing, which was in the leaks but now confirmed. The Workbench is exactly like Last of Us Part 2, where you'll be able to see Joel like flipping out different attachments and adding upgrades and all that, adding scopes, etc. And what's really cool is that there will be haptic feedback in this Workbench animation as well, and so you'll be able to feel when Joel like slaps on a silencer and everything, or he puts on a scope. You can feel that in the haptics itself. Really cool stuff there. Really cool to see the Workbench in full action in The Last of Us Part 1. So what are my final thoughts here, right? Overall, right, yes, I was a bit concerned, right? Like, seeing more of the leaked gameplay that came out after I uploaded my video this week about the leaks itself, and definitely it was looking a little suspicious. I can't lie, it was looking a little suspicious, but overall, right, where I'm at is I am a little bit more positive on this game from looking at the official rollout and looking at the official gameplay that they released here and detailing everything that's going on here, right? I think it looks great from a visual perspective. I am going to love things like how they're using the same character model from cutscenes to gameplay. Really loving to see that whole transition be more fluid. I'm going to definitely enjoy seeing different objects and seeing different physics things happen in the world to make it feel more lively and make it just make it feel more, just more fleshed out, right? Like that's obviously going to be a benefit here. The game looks incredible, looks really great from a fidelity perspective, absolutely, right? But for me, it's just falling short on one little thing, right? And it's that one little thing is kind of big overall, right? And that is that, with this game saying that it's going to be remade, right, I thought that we would get things like a dodge button, right, like prone, right, like things that we weren't able to do in the original game, right? And as far as I'm aware, like I don't think there's going to be anything here that you couldn't physically do as Joel in this game that you couldn't have done in the remaster or the original Last of Us, right? Where that's kind of where I'm at, where like I would have loved to see new gameplay mechanics that are specific for Joel himself that change the gameplay from that manner, right? In terms of being able to dodge, being able to prone, right? Like stuff like that, right? That's what I really thought we would get from this, from it being a remake, right? And being able to do that from the back of Part 2 and everything. But overall, like if I'm gonna play devil's, guys, follow me. If I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, right? Maybe they wanted to paint the picture that, hey, Ellie, who is a 19-year-old woman in The Last of Us Part 2, can dodge and can prone and do all that because she's of a younger demographic, right? Like she's gonna be able to move like that, right? Perhaps Joel is, he's pushing 40. He's a little old, his back hurting and all that, you know what I'm saying? So maybe he can't move like that. That I can understand, although they haven't said that. That's just me just making excuses, right? But overall, like I still at the end of the day would have loved to see Joel dodge and prone and all that. Like, but if they want like an in-world explanation, sure, we can look at it that way, right? But ultimately, I still would have liked to see those features in the Part 1 remake for sure, right? And I'm going to reserve full judgment until the game comes out, of course, right? Like, I don't think that we can really judge the gameplay from just looking at it. It's gameplay. We're gonna have, obviously, you can make a lot of different, judgments and opinions based off of looking at gameplay. We do it all the time, right? And we say that this looks like it possibly feels like this, right? Of course we can do that, right? And you can do that for this game too, right? But I'm gonna say full judgment until I can be on the sticks and play the game itself, because I'm hoping that with the revamped and improved AI from enemies, right, and with the motion matching, that the gameplay feels more fluid and feels a little bit closer to part 2. I'm kind of expecting that, right? But it's just when we don't have those specific gameplay mechanics that are from Last of Us Part 2 in this game, that I would have loved to see things, like the dodge, like the prone, is where I think things kind of fall apart ultimately for me. But we'll see when the full game comes out, right? But overall, well, I'll say, to address the $70 complaints, right? Like, hey, if you're looking at this gameplay, if you're looking at the info, and you don't feel that this is worth $70, simply don't buy it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it, And to make it even better, right, you have a remastered version available to you at a low price, as well as if you are a Plus member, not extra, not premium. If you're simply an essential PlayStation Plus member that has a PS5, you can go onto the PS Plus collection and download the remaster, no extra charge for yourself. Right, you can totally do that, right? And that is a great game in itself. I'm probably gonna replay it here leading up to part 1 for sure, but that's it, right? I'm going to pay the $70. I'm going to buy this game up front, and I will tell y'all exactly how I feel about it during the Road to Part 1 podcast series. Definitely get in tune for that. And yeah, I'm gonna see for myself, because I definitely want to feel this game on the sticks before I make a full judgment. But overall, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, and I definitely see the improvements here, but it is a few steps short of what I was hoping for from a remake from The Last of Us Part 1. And that's about it, guys. Down below, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know all your thoughts down below in that comment section. And also, while you are down there, make sure to leave a like on the video, as well as stay subscribed to PlayStation Stores to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. But also, don't forget, links to our Discord, our Twitter, and of course our Anchor link, that you can listen to our long form content and podcast format. Once again, Road to Part 1 is extremely close. Definitely stay tuned. Potentially next week. You never know. Y'all might get something next week. We will see. But definitely like the video, all that great stuff. Definitely love the support. And keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation, and of course, Last of Us Part 1 Remake. Thank you all for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.